So, for most of my secondary school life, I did not study, I did not work hard, but in my last year, when my GCSEs were coming up, I was like, okay, gotta lock in, and I studied every day for that whole year, and I ended up getting my perfect score. And I can tell you, it's not routine, it's not habit, it's not discipline, it's not motivation. Those things are fine, and that's what most people talk about. But today, we're going to analyze the fundamentals of behavior, and I actually have a special guest for this video. She is an expert in behavior, a perfect example, my cat. And for my test subject, we will be using... Now imagine if I wanted to get my cat to sit down like Kendrick Lamar, right? What would I do? Well, I'd probably tell her to sit down, give some sort of signal. Then, if she sat, I would reinforce the behavior by giving her some food. This is positive reinforcement, and it's one of the most important words that you'll learn from this video. But here's the thing that we don't really think about. Imagine I told her to sit down, she sat down, and then I wait 5 minutes. I wait 10 minutes before I give her the treat. Would she learn anything? Now she doesn't know why I'm rewarding her. It's not clear and she doesn't learn. Or she might just learn the wrong thing. Within those 5 minutes, she could have gone take a shit. I would have reinforced her taking a shit, not reinforced her taking a sit. Bars. And so this seems obvious, but if you look at the way you study and the way most people study, it's exactly like this. You study, no reinforcement. You study, no reinforcement, no reinforcement, no reinforcement, and then you wonder why at some point you give up. And this is the problem that I've always had with school. The positive reinforcement is too far away. Think about it, you have to do an action like study every day, so 365 days of action, and then the one reward you get is the report card at the end of the year. So the ratio is messed up. It's 365 actions but only one reward. If my cat sits down 10 times, I have to reward her 10 times. It has to be equivalent. And so what I'm about to say is really important. Winners win because they just find more ways to win. They find more ways to get that positive reinforcement loop going, and so here's how you can do it for yourself. And so even if you do a quiz and next week the teacher gives it back to you, 1 week is still too far apart. The thing is, if you have to work and do an action for 6 months and then you get one little bit of positive reinforcement at the end, that's not how we learn. Imagine if my cat sat down and I waited 6 months to give her the treat. She wouldn't learn anything at all. So we need to create this thing which I will refer to as the action reward cycle. So it kind of looks like this loop. You do an action, you get a reward, which spurs you on to do the action again, you get more reward again and again and again. And the key is, if you have action and reward, you must close the gap between them. That's how we learn faster. And so there are two important factors, the frequency and the amount that you reward. Frequency means how often you reward, meaning the cat sits down 10 times, you give him 10 treats. That's frequent rewards. Amount is how big the rewards are. So my cat could sit down 10 times and I only give her a reward on the 10th one. So only once, but I give her a hella big reward. I give her a whole fucking salmon. She could still learn, right? But which one would you bet works better? Probably the small, frequent ones, right? So that's what I did to train myself. And so what I did is that every day I would do a practice paper, and then I'll mark the practice paper, and after I marked it, I could see the score. And so I could compare it with yesterday's score. So for example, today I got a 66, tomorrow I get a 67. That's positive reinforcement, and you can see a slight increase. So I test and check and test and check, and I have like all the papers in like a file or in a book, and I write the grade at the top. So if you imagine this is the paper, right? I'll write the grade at the top, so I can flip through and see the grades increase, almost like a flip book. So I'm going to illustrate this to you visually, so let's hop onto my laptop. I'll draw some stuff for you. Hello, welcome to Whiteboard with Ruff. So here's how I can visualize it with a timeline. Imagine this is how most people look. They have one goal, which is the report card with the straight A's, and they're here. And they want to get from point A to point B, and maybe they have one checkpoint in the middle, which is like the mid-year exam, right? But most of the time, it's just one goal, one win. No positive reinforcement. Ain't nobody got time for that. But this is how the winners look like. They find many ways to win in between, so they reinforce the behavior. Math practice paper improved by 2%. I studied 30 minutes more today than yesterday. I finished that group project that was really annoying, done my first 10 study sessions, we're in the double digits now, let's go. Improved my essay writing by 10%, slept at the same time for over 2 weeks now, finally locking in 50 practice papers done for, let's say, over like 8 months. And the same thing goes with YouTube. If I said, hey bro, get 200k subs right now, it would be such a daunting task because you would have to go very long without seeing any positive reinforcement, and 90% of people will quit. But this is how I saw it on my journey. It's more like this. Every single 10,000 subscribers was a win. And of course it should be, right? 10,000 people is a lot of people. Every video they uploaded was also a win. And so I just found more ways to win. Winners win because they find more ways to win. That's Whiteboard with Ruff. Back to the normal video. Mwah! The best way to actually stick to something for the long term is to see progress in front of your eyes. We only get discouraged when we don't see results, when we feel like we're wasting our time here, when nothing is changing, nothing is moving. We've been living the same week for like 4 weeks, 5 weeks, 2 months. So we question if we're even doing the right thing. So for most of my life, it was no reinforcement, no, and then I got the reinforcement of the good grades, and that was okay. But for a lot of people, like children who are raised right, it was actually flipped. And so they got positive reinforcement to begin with. And this is a very important concept. If you can get a big positive reinforcement in the beginning, you can go super long without any. So for example, some kids, their parents were really supportive when they got a good grade. That's why they turn into these students that it seems like school is made for them. They're easy. Right? For me, it's not. Key point, after a while, if you have big enough positive reinforcement, you can actually stop positively reinforcing and you'll still continue to do the habit for a prolonged period of time. For example, how the first 100 times that you tell the dog to sit, you have to give the dog a treat, give the dog a bone. But at some point, like with most dog owners, you just say sit and the dog sits. Even if you don't reward it, it just learns the habit. The same thing here. And a little side note that I have here, which I find quite interesting, is this is why you don't need discipline or habits when it comes to your passion. Because what I define passion is action and reward in the same thing. So you know how I said the action reward cycle, right? You do an action and then you get reward. And the closer it is, the better. The more you will do the action. What I see passion is when they're exactly the same. The moment you do the action, you get the reward in that moment. For example, right now, as I'm recording this video, it's an action, but I also get reward right now because I like doing it, right? I like explaining stuff, and I especially like writing. So writing the video is actually more fun than recording, but I like both processes. And so you don't need to love school to do well at it. You just need to know this process of action and reward and replicate it. For example, there are thousands of students every year that do really well in school. I see so many students so stressed for the O-levels, A-levels, PSLE even. And guess what? Do you think they're doing it because they love school so much they're willing to do anything, they're willing to put up for it? No, they're doing it because they've been rewarded in the past for doing the same action, or they've been punished in the past for not doing the action. Most of those students probably don't even know about like habits, routine. They haven't read those books, haven't watched these like self-improvement videos, but they don't need to because they've been taught positive reinforcement unintentionally. And so I made this whole video because of this comment that I'll put out on screen right now, and I also made a community post about it, so I'm just gonna read it really quick. How do I study every day? Well, look at the things that you naturally do every day and copy that. I'm not talking about brushing your teeth or breathing or walking. I mean the things you naturally do every day that others probably don't. For me, that's writing. And the reason I do it every day is because I find internal satisfaction with every word I'm typing, even right now. If I was writing a book, instead of looking to the end of the year for the full book, I would find every page as a fun challenge. So maybe instead of looking at the end of the year for your grades, if you want to study every day, look at each study session and see it as a win. Because if you look at the things you naturally do every day and you never struggle to do, whether it's an instrument, art, or sport, you find it fun because you learn to see those small incremental increases in skill. You find those small improvements exciting. You get positive reinforcement from that positive feedback loop. You see those 1% improvements as you level up. Same way in a video game, you don't constantly worry about beating the whole game. You just focus on the current level. So instead of obsessing over the final grade, if you focus on the current study session and once it's done, you see it as a win, you get to the final boss more prepared. Winners just find more ways to win. And so assume that you weren't you and you needed to train a person or you train an animal to do an activity. How would you guarantee that they learn this behavior? Well, number one, I would reward them instantly when they do it right. Number two, I would not reward them if they don't do the thing or even punish them. And then number three, I would increase slowly until they learn the behavior. So the first time, I would reward them very quickly. But after 6 months, I would reward them less again, until at some point, I can just stop rewarding the dog. I can say sit, and the dog will still sit. And that's when I know they're fully trained. So the way that I studied every day for a year was I saw each study session as a win. It was a mindset shift, not like a real like physical reward. I didn't, eat sweets or something. Like a lot of people say that, like, oh, you do the Pomodoro technique, 25 minutes of work, then those 5 minutes you can go play a video game so you can positively reinforce yourself. Bro, if I went to play a video game, I would just not work again for the rest of the day. I would just continue playing. And when I say I studied every day, I don't mean 12 hours every day. I just mean every single day, I did some sort of studying. Some days were 30 minutes, some days were 2 hours. Maybe closer to exam time, it would be like 3-4 hours. But I did it every day without fail. And so I think it's more of the internal satisfaction, which is like going back to the drawing that I showed you. It's same journey, same goal. One person has 1 win, one person has 100 wins. So instead of seeing the win as the straight A's on your report card, which will take a year to get to anyway, see the win as the 1 or 2% increase in your practice paper. So with this mindset, look over the past week of your life, the past month of your life. In the moment, it doesn't seem like there's many wins, but if you look back now, look at the wins that you did get. They're probably a lot more than you actually thought. Now go get more. Lower your barrier, find more ways to win, and I guarantee you will start winning more. Take action. I just realized that like half the screen in this video was just white because of how like the exposure from the sun, but let's just move this way, you know, just pretend that never happened. There we go. But yeah, if you like this video, you can join my free community. I do a Q&A call every week or once every 2 weeks where I just hop on and you can talk to me. I can also just make posts. The community is really big now. Like I think we're closing in on 10,000 members soon. So bueno, if you want, you can join. Completely free. First link in the description is the one that says free. And yeah, find more ways to win.